Hey everybody, welcome to the Aligned Love Podcast. This is the place where I am going to help you find the one thing that you feel is missing, healthy love. I am your host, Lauren Zoller, and in this podcast, I will share with you how to attract love, live in alignment, and elevate your deepest relationships. So buckle up, get present, tune into your body, and open up to the possibility that you truly do get to have it all. Let's dive in. Nora, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. It's funny, we were just talking before the show just about how small Nashville is. And I know that you've been here for how long now?
A year, a little over a year.
Okay. So, but you knew people here before you moved to Nashville, right?
Not many. I knew, like, my best friend had just moved and she jokingly was like, "Oh, you should move with me." And I was like, I don't know anything about Nashville, but I'll visit.
Yeah.
But I came to visit and I ended up staying because there was black mold found in the walls of my house in Los Angeles.
Oh, no.
And I thought just moving out of the house, I would be better. But a few months later, I was still really sick. And the doctor I was working with was like, "You need to stay put for 6 months, sauna every day, acupuncture once a week." I was crying. I was like, do I move back to LA where I have no belongings? So I had to throw everything out from the mold. Do I move in with my parents? And I was like, I guess I'll stay in this city. I guess I'm here for a reason. And I got so many signs, deep, deep signs of just like, this is where you're meant to be. So I've been here for a little over a year.
Well, I love it. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome home to Nashville.
Thank you.
It's so exciting to have you here. So I know that we're going to talk about quite a bit today. And we were just talking about your journey from being a matchmaker to now transitioning into the coaching space and helping people really find their authentic voice. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, about how you went from matchmaking to where you are now in this kind of massive career pivot?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Huge career pivot. So I was a matchmaker in New York City to celebrities and people who needed to be private about their dating life. And I did that for 5 years. Loved it. The job was essentially to be your client's best friend and ride the roller coaster of dating with them. And so I loved that part of it. But about 3 years in, I was like, the success rate wasn't super high. And so it felt out of integrity for me. So I started questioning, like, okay, every business is a solution to someone's problem. What is the solution to finding love? If it's not matchmaking, what is it? So I started just reading a bunch. I went to some Tony Robbins conferences. I was just seeking for myself as well. And then I found coaching and I was like, this is it. This is what I need. This is what my clients need. So I was trained by Tony Robbins and then I was trained by his coach, John Grinder. And then also trained in International Coaching Federation, ICF, and started my coaching business. And the rest is history. I've had my business now for 6 years.
Wow.
And I did date coaching, relationship coaching at first. That naturally segued into life coaching because I was way more focused on who is the person as an individual and what did they want. I wasn't as personally excited about what to wear on a first date.
Yeah.
Much more about their deep inner confidence about who they are and what they want and how to show up authentically. And then recently it's so obvious to me, all my clients are business owners, and I've known that for the past couple of years, but now I've really tailored to only working with business owners and content creators and really helping them continue to get clear on their confidence and really the gifts that God gave them. That's my total superpower is okay, who are you and what are you not seeing yourself? Because sometimes it's hard to see ourselves fully. And I really hold up that mirror and help them get clear on their mission. And it's so much fun. It just brings me the most life to help people just put their authentic gifts into their business.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how, I was being interviewed on a summit this morning and we were talking about why it's so vital to have coaching and to have therapy and to have a mentor. And I was just reflecting on, there's only so many things that you can see for yourself. And to have someone else hold that mirror up for you and to you and say, hey, do you see these things about yourself? And can I reflect this back to you is such a powerful gift. So I'm curious, what does that look like when you work with clients that come in and they may not know their gifts, or they may not have at least the words to be able to describe what their gifts are? What does that look like on your end when you're working with somebody who doesn't really see it?
It's like magic. That's what it feels like. It's just so much fun. But tangibly, it's usually someone who, a lot of my clients either just started a business, want to start a business, or have some type of platform online. And they're burnt out and they don't know which direction to go. And they've been pushing and pushing, and they're scared. And they come to me, and what that looks like, and I know you do this as well with everyone that you probably come into contact with, you regulate with them, you help them feel really safe. And then you create that safety to allow to see them and really ask permission to say, like, can I share what I'm seeing? And it's just through that client coach relationship, through little things that they say, things that they get excited about. One of my clients, I met her at an event about a year ago, and I didn't know she was going to be a client. I just met her as a person, and she said, yeah, I'm kind of trying that influencer thing, is what she said. And she kind of whispered it and looked away. I was like, oh, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. And then about 5 months later, she reached out. She was like, I think I need a business coach. I was like, okay, let's hop on a call. And on the first call, I was like, yeah, I remember when you said, I think I'm going to try the influencer thing, but you're doing it, girl. Like, when do you think you'll claim it? And she was like, oh my gosh. She was like, maybe today. Now she's tripled her numbers, but it's not about the numbers for her. It's about the mission. She has one of the most beautiful missions I've ever seen. It's so heart-centered and it's so real. And the only reason she wasn't growing is she wasn't clear on that. And usually the mission comes from like your own personal story, something you've either deeply struggled with in the past or something you were like really excited about in like third grade. You loved it, but you totally forgot that that's what you love because you were conditioned by society to think you're supposed to go down a more traditional route.
Yeah, it's crazy how many of us end up in paths and in missions that were, at least my own personal story, were someone else's mission for us. And then through healing and through growth and really through trial and error and really probably not loving yourself for an extended period of time, you end up finding at your core what it was that you were supposed to be doing in the first place. Do you often see that with clients you work with?
Always. It's kind of, I would say it's eerie, but it's not eerie. It's just truth. I think we all know our truth. We just lose sight of it. We forget it. We try to fit in. Gabor Mate has the classic like attachment versus authenticity and kind of the balance between the two. We want attachment, we want connection, but a lot of people are taught from a really young age that to get attachment, we have to leave our true self and follow the rules of our primary caregivers or whatever our society was. And a lot of my work is, I don't use that language with clients because I keep it a little more casual, but what I'm really doing behind the scenes is, okay, wait, what's the authenticity that they've been forgetting about? And by questions I ask them, they're able to uncover that, but also I can see it pretty quickly. We can all see it in each other. That's why I think it's super important to have, like you were talking about, the mirrors that we can get through coaching or mentorship and friendships. I always use the analogy of in any type of unhealthy relationship, it's like looking in a mirror, but it's like a funhouse mirror, right? It's like, wait, you're telling me I'm 500 pounds or 25 feet tall. Like, I don't think I am, but am I? And you're kind of confused. That's what any type of unhealthy mirror is going to do. And it's detrimental to people's confidence. I can speak on that because I've been in that type of relationship many times. But that's the difference when you're in front of a mirror that's clean and clear and kind and honest. They can say like the true gifts that you have that you might not have been seeing because you might have been standing in front of some mirrors that aren't actually clear.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so it's interesting. Are you okay to get a little personal?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, good. So what has it been like now that since you're an entrepreneur and you're in Nashville now and you're new, how's dating been in Nashville?
Gosh. That's a great question. Buckle up. So I was in a 4-year relationship in LA.
Okay.
I was 26 when I met him, and I did not know who I was at all. So we had a very classic anxious avoidant dynamic. I was more anxious, he was more avoidant. But also like, because I didn't know who I was hard to date, because sometimes I was like, oh, my faith matters to me. And sometimes I was like, no, my faith doesn't matter to me. That's a huge value that it's just, I can't blame him. We co-created the dynamic, but I'm grateful for that relationship because I woke up to how I co-created, and I woke up to therapy and somatics and taking personal responsibility for what my life looks like and my relationships look like. So that happened. After that relationship ended, I was like, okay, girl, we got to practice what we preach. Let's be single. So I decided to be single for a full year, which was also really healing because I got to see, addiction is a strong word, but I do think I had some addictive patterns of just attention and love and just having someone there. So it was really cool to quote unquote be sober from just like the male gaze at all. Yeah. And scary and vulnerable, but it allowed me to really step into my power. Right. So did that and then got sick with the mold. So now I've been single for like 2.5 years, and I'm almost gotten too comfortable with being single. Yeah. And
which is a thing.
Totally. And got so clear on who I am.
Yeah.
That then when I came to Nashville and I started dating, it was a bit of a culture shock for me because I'm from Alaska originally, have lived in New York and LA, and I've never lived in the South. And so there's been a lot of people I've dated where some of our political beliefs, although I'm like very moderate, but some of the beliefs were just really extreme for me.
Welcome to the South.
Yeah. But it's also been cool because then I've been navigating like, okay, I've never heard anyone say that. So I guess I'll do my research. I guess I'll learn more about this, and got more confident in what I believe. But yeah, long story short, it's mainly been a culture shock for me. Right. But I recently met a guy, and he's really wonderful, and he still does. He's very Southern. He's from Louisiana. But the difference is I feel safe with him versus the other people that I've dated here. When we would talk about potentially different beliefs, it would be really charged. And there was no wiggle room for allowing the other person to see where they're coming from. Yeah. Versus this guy, like, we have we have mainly the same beliefs, but some are different, but he like sees me in them and I see him in them.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. It's definitely a different culture in the South, dating wise, than it is in New York or California. Yes. Even in Colorado, coming from Colorado, it's so different. And I love that you're sharing sometimes I have people on the show who are in the dating world. Sometimes they're married. So I love hearing what's it like. Yeah. Are you on dating apps?
Oh yeah.
You are. You're on all the dating apps.
I'm on Hinge and Raya.
Okay.
And I can tell you all about it.
Yeah. Tell us all about them. Everybody so this podcast is all about love and dating and relationships. And I have a lot of clients that live in the Nashville area who struggle. They struggle with the dating scene in Nashville. And some of them don't want to be on the dating apps. I love hearing when there's positive experiences on the dating apps because I think they can be a beautiful tool.
Oh my gosh. I have had, especially like as a background as a matchmaker and then being single and being on the dating apps myself, I am such a proponent of dating apps. Yeah. And I was as a matchmaker too. I was like, look, I'm going to help you find love and I'm going to essentially date for you. But the same guys that are my clients as a matchmaker are on Hinge. Yeah. And a lot of people will kind of project like their anger about their dating journey onto the app. And I'm like, that's just a tool. Yes. Yeah. But I will say also moving to Nashville from LA, I'm 33. I was 32 when I first moved here. And I called my mom in tears after I went to like a game night. I'd been here for like a month. And I was like, Mom, I feel like I have a scarlet letter on me. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. People in LA don't even think about a serious relationship until you're maybe 34. Yeah. But here, like, people are married. Like everyone's married, it feels like. And I just feel like, I've never felt shame for being single, but it's heavy on me here. Yeah. But I just prayed about it, gave it to God, like got back into my power of like, hey, my worth does not come from being in a relationship.
So strong.
Yeah. And, but did talk to friends about it. Like, hey, at this dinner party, can we invite a couple other single people so I'm not the only one sitting at the table without a partner? So also told my close friends like how they could support me. But in terms of like the actual dating apps, I think the guys in Nashville my experience has been the Southern hospitality is freaking amazing. So although there are some cultural differences, I'm also kind of assimilating to this culture and realizing how nice it is to have a masculine leader. And I don't think I don't want like strict gender roles at all, but it is kind of nice to have someone play some of those roles, knowing I want to play some of those roles when I'm a mom. So I've really loved the door opening. Like that's wild.
Such a Southern thing.
I've never had that in LA ever.
It's so funny. It's so funny. I was just dating a guy from Colorado who came in to see me, flew in. We were walking down the street and he didn't, I'm so used to dating in the South where the man will put you on the inside. He didn't. And I was like, hey, would you mind walking on the other side? And he was like, yeah. Do you guys do that here? I'm like, yeah, that's a very Southern thing to do. It's a gentleman thing to do, but you forget those little tiny nuances when you don't date in the South. Continue. Sorry,
and that's why I was hesitant to even bring up the political part because it's such a nuanced topic. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer of like, I think what's most important is safety. So yes, I've liked the walking on the other side of the street, the car door, but I've liked it because it makes me feel protected and safe. And so I've dated men here who do that and I don't feel protected and safe by. And I've dated men here that do that and I do feel protected and safe by. So for me, it's so much more about their energy and the way they hold themselves and the questions they ask me and their heart and their integrity. But yeah, the opening the door, picking me up, spiritually, it's been really cool to meet people who are so open about their faith and talk about their faith. That was not something I really experienced in New York or LA as much. So that's been awesome. Another experience I've had is the men here I've dated are really intentional about getting married and talk about it pretty quickly, which I like. I would like to get married. And I've heard people say like it's kind of a F-boy culture and people don't want to like Peter Pan. I do not experience that here. I've
great.
Really only experienced people like really committed.
That's great.
But just kind of different values was what broke us up.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that because there was a study that was released a couple of weeks ago. I know this is bad. You're not going to want to hear it. But Nashville was voted one of the top 3 worst cities to date in the United States. I know I was so bummed. And to be truthful, I haven't actually dated anybody from Nashville in probably 2 years. I tend to date outside of Nashville, mainly because for a long time before I pivoted, a lot of my clients were here. So it was too close. I will never forget, I got on a dating app and I had a man was like, I've been following you for years. Can you give me advice? And I was like, oh my gosh, no, this is the worst way to approach a woman on a dating app. So it just didn't feel like it was the right space to date in Nashville. But I saw that the other day and I was like, oh, what a bummer. So it makes me so happy to hear that you're having a good experience. The best
experience. Like that's been one of my favorite parts about being here.
I love it.
Just how kind all of the men have been on dates.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So quick tips for women who are in their mid-30s who want to navigate the dating apps. Do you have any? Do you have any that you can? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now.
I totally have some.
But I think that this is a great topic to kind of dive into for people that are listening.
I think, and I actually learned this from my therapist and also as a matchmaker, but it almost confirmed it to hear it from her too. Be so specific, and I'm sure you say this all the time too, so specific on your profile. Like, I used to be cool girl on my profile. Like, say things like hot dog or hamburger. Like, I don't know, just something dumb that tells them nothing about me, but it makes me see Game of Thrones or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, no, that's not going to vet them out.
Right.
I want to scare the men away who are not secure and intentional about dating.
Yes.
I want them to see my profile and be like, oh shit, she's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And I want to attract the ones who read a very clear explanation of my values and who I am and what I like to do for fun and my vision for my life. And them say, oh my gosh, me too. And then we already know we don't have to do this kind of aloof, like playful banter where we're like testing the waters. Like we already clearly know a lot of what we're looking for is similar.
I love that.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, that you should have you should be so specific and not just who you are, but also what it is that you desire before you even go into the apps.
Totally.
Because we don't have time for pen pals. I don't personally. I don't have time for a pen pal, and I'm sure that you don't either.
No.
That's so great.
And then I also learned this from my therapist. I will send the first message and I'll say like, hey, Tom, I love your photo with the fishing rod or whatever.
So many fishing pictures.
I know. Or football pictures. That's another big one that you don't see in a lot in LA. Yeah. But like, I love the photo with the fishing thing. Can I ask you something? And that sets intrigue. They're like, oh, like, what is she going to ask me? So they always respond to that, like, sure. Versus like other times I might just say like, hey, Tom, like they might not respond. And then it's just kind of a wasted connection. So say that, can I ask you something? They say, sure. And then this is the line that I learned from my therapist. I say, cool. I realized that the dating apps can get kind of old after a while. So I decided to pivot. Any guy who's listening to this is going to be like, holy shit, she said this to me. Because I seriously copy and paste it, but I'm for the girls. So girls listening, literally use this. And then say, so I decided to pivot and wanted to share like really what I'm on here for and ask you what you're on here for. And then we can go back to the normal, like flirtatious, getting to know each other, you in. And so many guys are like, this is so refreshing. Like, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Oh, so good. This is going to be, I'm just thinking about the clip that we're going to use to promote this, and it's going to be that.
Okay.
So I'm so sorry if any of the men that follow me, I just gave away your secret, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Because it sets the tone for intentionality. Yeah. And I think that that's what gets overwhelming about the dating apps for people is that, and I hear it on both sides, not just, with the females I work with. Men are exhausted too. Yeah. Like they are tired of hearing, hey, Neil, how are you? Like how many messages is he getting like that? So I think it's a really, really solid point to, and again, it goes back to knowing your worth and knowing what you're there for and really getting clear and intentional on what it is that you desire and what you're using the apps for so that you can be in that space of intentionality when you get on there. I love it. Yeah. So good.
Super helpful. And to shout out my therapist, her name is Jordan Blue. She's also amazing. She's in this world. She's in Nashville. Like, I'm super grateful to have learned from her too.
I love it so much. I'm curious if you've done any somatic work.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, I'm really happy I just brought up Jordan because I was super hesitant to start working with a therapist. I started working with her this January, and I had gotten to a point where I truly had felt like I had done everything. Like lots of therapy, lots of coaching, lots of somatic work. I've read all the books, and I just was like, you know what? I think I just might be single forever. Like that was kind of my conclusion. And then I started working with her, and she asked about my history of just self-development and growth and therapy. And I told her the deepest impact out of all of the stuff I've done was somatic therapy, like by far.
Love it.
So yes, I've done somatics, and it's like, it's just a different level. It's not the logical part of your brain. It's where you store your trauma, and it's releasing it and understanding it. And I love the Peter Levine understanding of no one's ever died from too big of emotions, but we have died from running away from our emotions.
Yes.
And really what's happening is we just need a bigger container to hold our emotions. Yeah.
Yep. And that's what somatic work is all about. I tell people we're not getting rid of your trauma.
Yeah.
We are expanding your container to hold the trauma that you've experienced and to hold the big emotions and to hold the survival responses. And I think that it's, I'm a little biased because it's my whole world.
I mean, you should be. It's a good world. It's a really helpful world.
Yeah. But it really can help. I'm curious how it helped you in the dating world.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, so I was in that 4-year relationship, and I left out one little detail when I said like, oh, you need to do, be single for a year. About 2 weeks after I ended that relationship, I met a guy. Okay. I met him at like a lounge in LA. Yeah. He was an actor. He lived in his van, and it was very different from my relationship before, but it was wildly passionate. Like I hadn't like felt that type of just passion in a really long time. And then 2 months in, I saw wild red flags, and I was like, oh,
Right.
okay, shoot, got to end this.
Which usually comes with really deep passion.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yeah. And it was just the relationship before that was like very, very safe. Just like we weren't ready. I wasn't there yet. But I was a mess. I was heartbroken because I thought he was the love of my life, and he hurt me because of these red flags. I was like in a lot of pain. But I knew this somatic work, and I knew like I wanted to run. I wanted to like move to France. I wanted to eat in and out like every day. And I was like, right, no, all of those things are numbing. Like we just have to sit. And so how it affected my dating world was instead of running, texting an ex-boyfriend or just acting impulsive, trying to get that dopamine hit to make me feel better, I just literally, when I say sit, like I sat.
Yeah.
And I texted two of my best friends, and I was like, I feel like I'm underwater. Like I can't really do much besides just sit right now and breathe and meditate and pray. But after about a month of sitting, I texted him. I was like, okay, I still feel like I'm underwater, but I feel like I'm learning how to breathe underwater. And that's what helped me the most, is just knowing how to be my own container and regulating my nervous system so that I didn't keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And so now when I'm triggered, I can now explicitly, I know it myself. I'm not like asking someone else to tell me like what to do or how to deal with it. Or running towards them to fix me or heal me or nurture me. I'm able to say like, okay, like this is what I'm feeling and this is what I need from you. So I think that's the biggest.
So big.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I articulate to every person that comes inside of my container. And I tell them, you know, I know you're coming in because you want to find your person, right? But really what we're doing is we're finding your way back home to yourself so that you can sit in these feelings that are too big,
Love that.
you know, that make you feel like you want to run to the next thing that's shiny, or get on the dating apps and numb out, or continue to date the same person that's not safe and doesn't continue to show up for you in the way you want to be shown up for. So it's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. It's hard. It's like, I admire anyone who does this work, anyone who facilitates this work, because to facilitate it, you've got to have an even bigger container.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. But on the other side of it, it's freedom.
I know. It really is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Nora, I could talk to you all day.
I feel
like we could just riff about so many things. We're going to have to go and have a girls' night in Nashville at some point. But I always ask this question before we kind of talk about what you're up to and where people can find you. I always ask this question on the Aligned Love podcast. I want to know what it means to you to be in aligned love, an aligned relationship. And that can be a relationship to yourself. It can be an aligned relationship with your best friend. What does that word alignment really mean? I
love that. For me, it means my heart is open enough to be guided by something bigger than myself. It's when I am spending time in prayer, in meditation. I'm Christian, so when I'm spending time reading the word, it's synchronicities that happen. It's just like almost this, it's not easy. I almost said effortless. It is effortless, but in terms of like things just being in alignment and kind of flowing in front of me. But the mindset part is not effortless. It's continually kind of taking each thought captive and saying like, okay, is this true? Is this real? Is this from an aligned place? Or is this my fear? Is this doubt? Is this something different? But when I am regulated enough where my heart is open to fully surrender and be guided, that's alignment for me.
I love it. Such a beautiful response. So good. So where can people find you? And what do you have coming up next that they can dive into?
Yeah. People can find me on Instagram at Nora DeKeyser or TikTok at Nora DeKeyser. And what's next is just, I'm actually starting a community of content creators, founders, business owners, because a lot of clients that I work with are really alone, and it's scary to do business alone, and I want to connect other people. So be on the lookout for that. I'm really excited for that.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for showing up and sharing your heart and being honest and vulnerable about the dating world, especially in Nashville. I cannot wait to have you on again soon.
Thank you.
wraps up today's episode of the Aligned Love podcast. One thing that would really help me and the other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment wherever you tune in and listen. Also, make sure to link up with me on Instagram at Lauren Zoller, and please share this podcast with anyone who you think may enjoy it. Until next episode, remember, every transformation begins with one moment of awareness, and I hope today has been yours. I'll see you next time.